Summer is here. At Orderly Meds, we know this time is a reminder that life is full of new beginnings. Whether you're celebrating the nice weather, starting a new chapter, planning a vacation, or simply looking ahead to what's next, this season can be the perfect time to invest in yourself and your health. If you've struggled with weight loss and are curious about GLP-1 medications, Orderly Meds can help you learn about your options. Through a simple virtual process, you can connect with licensed medical professionals who can determine whether treatment may be appropriate for you. Getting started is fast, convenient, and happens online from the comfort of home. This summer, consider a new approach to feeling your best. Visit orderlymeds.com/podcast to learn more. That's orderlymeds.com/podcast. orderlymeds.com/podcast. Because every new season is an opportunity to take the next step forward. Compounded medications are not FDA approved. Eligibility required and determined by a licensed provider. Individual results may vary. See website for details.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Erick Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here across the United States. 877-973-7425 is the phone number. Freddie is back on Twitter. You know that the German, he had suspended his account because things got so heated, people trying to expose him as some sort of American operative or social media influencer. It wasn't actually the case. He is back. He's actually in Clemson, South Carolina. They've still been touring around. Very, very, very interesting. Now, before I move on to anything else, I would like to well, hang on a second. I should play you this as this is just getting circulated now. This is Joe Biden from 2015. He was at the ceremonial swearing in for Lindsey Graham, and Darlene Graham-Norden was holding the Bible. Let's listen to this for a second.
I'm not doing the next one. I am not doing this.
Yes, you are. It's part of the job. Constitutionally required.
No, jump over here. They're going to have you stand on this side.
All right.
All right.
Darling. Is it okay to give my sister and my two nieces?
Hey, sis. How are you? It's a pleasure.
So, you know, Graham and Biden had a very friendly relationship, even as they disagreed with each other. And his sister, Darlene Norden, has kids now, and it was very, very, he was influential, raised her after their parents died. And I got to tell you that it's going to be interesting to see if she decides, you know what, I might try to run this thing. Right now, the rumor is she'll just be a caretaker for the seat and stay on until the end of Graham's term in office. But we will see what happens. Okay. The guess here, by the way, the speculation from my friend Mark Halperin is that Russell Fry, the congressman for South Carolina's 7th Congressional District, will jump to the Senate. He was the former chief whip in the South Carolina House. He's a big supporter of Donald Trump, who very much likes the guy and would keep the seat safe. He's a pretty charismatic campaigner out there. We'll see how that develops. Now, before I move on to anything else, I want to jump down to Palm Beach. I want to take Junior's phone call here. Palm Beach, Florida. Welcome to the show. Junior, how are you?
I'm great, Mr. Erickson. How are you today?
I'm great. What's going on?
So I just want to talk about the point that was made, the statement by Trump that you cannot have communism and patriotism. And if that is going to be the strategy of the GOP to win elections, it's going to fail. Number one, those two are not juxtapositional ideologies. I would argue that China is one of the most patriotic countries in the world. Certainly Russia, during its communist days, was an extraordinarily patriotic country. I would suggest globalism and patriotism are juxtapositional ideologies. The central issue that has to be addressed, and it's going to be growing every single day, is the issue of Israel. I'm not going to give any commentary on how they deal with it, because I'm not certain the right way to deal with it. But, I've had in-depth conversations even with Roger Stone about this very matter, and it will become the central issue, dividing and conquering the independents and what's left of the right MAGA voter. And that's all I have to say.
Junior, I actually don't think Israel is going to be as dominant as some people think it is, certainly with young voters right now. But I think as the president and Republicans make the case about the communist takeover of the Democratic Party, it will pull a number of people back off the edge on that particular issue, thankfully. All that being said, I recognize that communism is a political philosophy, economic and political philosophy. So we talk about capitalism versus communism. Capitalism is an economic policy. Capitalism, or the free market, is an economic policy, and you can have progressives have views on the free market and conservatives have views on the free market. Communism is a political and economic philosophy combined. And you can have patriotism in communist systems. The Chinese are very nationalistic and patriotic. Back in the day, there was a lot of Soviet patriotism. Of course, there was a major indoctrination within the Soviet communist system in the Soviet Union to do that. But patriotism is distinct. And in this country, however, the point the president was making is that you can't be patriotic and communist in the United States because communism stands in opposition to what the United States is right now. And that's something you got to remember. Rashida Tlaib is one of the progressive leaders in the United States House. I can't play you the audio because we haven't had a chance to edit it. For the profanity. Let me read this to you. This is Rashida Tlaib on stage at a People's Conference for Palestine, and I quote, "The political structures that we are surrounded by were built on slavery and genocide and oppression. Look at this room, mother effers. We aren't going anywhere. Now we're in Congress and every corner of the United States." That is an ideology of overthrow. There is no reason that we should continue to allow people like Rashida Tlaib to be in government, and to the extent that immigrants come to this country and embrace that ideology, we should throw them out of the country. There's a guy on social media who pointed out earlier that Zohran Mamdani is the most visible example of a modern immigrant radical left that does not seek to be included and be inclusive, but rather seeks to control, supplant, replace, and ultimately exclude. They see America as a takeover opportunity, and its capture by them as some sort of cosmic revenge for what they think we have done in the world. Now, Rashida Tlaib, let's Google this live on the fly to see. Rashida Tlaib was born in Detroit, so she is a native-born American citizen. She cannot be deported. She is a citizen. She's not an immigrant who gained citizenship. But she voices an ideology that is becoming more and more pernicious. And that ideology believes that the United States is somehow illegitimate, that the United States is bad, and that the United States has been a force for evil in the world. That is the point, Junior and others, that the president was getting to when you can either be a communist or a patriot, because in this country, the communists, including Rashida Tlaib and others, They claim to be democratic socialists, but they're more and more comfortable being open about their Maoist, Marxist, Leninist ideology. They believe the United States is inherently bad. And because they believe the United States is inherently bad, they want to overthrow the United States. I, my friends, am deeply concerned that the Democratic Party is just rapidly taking over these people. They are rapidly pursuing dangerous ideologies, and they are rapidly pursuing the destruction of the United States, and they're rapidly pursuing taking over the Democratic Party to make that happen. Khanna is one of these progressives. Khanna is the progressive congressman from California. And he has been he was placed on the investigative committee for China. And Democrats and Republicans alike both grumble that Khanna has been doing his best to obstruct the work of the committee. He's very sympathetic to the communist Chinese. He was put there by the House Democratic leadership, and he's been undermining and destroying the credibility of the committee from within. Makes you wonder. Khanna supported Graham Plattner. In fact, after the allegations came out about Lindsey Khanna doubled down on his support for Graham Plattner and hand-waved away the allegations from his victim. Only as Plattner drops out because more victims come forward, this time sympathetic on the Democratic left, Plattner withdraws and Khanna tries to run away from him. So what does he do after doubling down on his defense of Plattner? He runs off to Israel. Khanna goes to Israel. He's an ardent foe of Israel and goes to an area of the West Bank where you have to have Israeli military permission to go. He takes with him a New York Times photographer who is a documented anti-Semitic foe of Israel to capture pictures of Khanna being detained by the Israeli military for going into territory for which he needs their permission and he declines to get it. And then tries to turn it into a big anti-Israel scandal. Why? Because he needed to change the subject from Graham Plattner to something more favorable to the left, which is to stir up the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel sentiment on the left by getting detained. It was all a con job and a PR maneuver. He got the outcome he wanted by the Israeli media to shift the subject away from Graham Plattner to something else to avoid having to grapple with his own protectionist schemes. He's just not a good dude. And more within the Democratic Party are embracing that far-left ideology. They're being co-opted. The Democratic Party doesn't know what to do with it. They're allowing these far-left people to come into the party. They are highly funded by people whose interests are aligned against the United States. They are funded by outside entities. You know, one of the scandals that I don't think most Americans have fully absorbed is the scandal of the Democrats' fundraising mechanism, ActBlue. ActBlue knowingly left off its safeguards to prevent foreign money from flowing into ActBlue to fund Democratic candidates. ActBlue could have turned on verifiers to make sure donations were not coming from abroad. They chose not to. And it became such a big scandal, ActBlue's own lawyers reported ActBlue for this activity. ActBlue has been a chief instigator of money for the Democratic Party. And I don't think it's a coincidence that since ActBlue has been exposed as allowing foreign influence into the United States through their fundraising portals, the Democratic Party's cash on hand has gone down tremendously. The Democratic Party and Democratic candidates have knowingly been being funded by foreigners. It was a big thing when Barack Obama ran for office. I, running Red State, documented how ActBlue was allowing people to donate from foreign entities without verification. The number of people from the Gaza territory who flowed through, and ActBlue list them as Georgia because it came through as GA. I was at this event over the weekend. John Fund, who used to write at the Wall Street Journal, was talking about this, that ActBlue is allowing people to come in and give money, and for state, they were putting in GA, and they meant Gaza for credit card purposes. It went through as Gaza, but ActBlue apparently, allegedly attributed as the state of Georgia. And that's all now been turned off, as they're being investigated federally for allowing foreign donors to influence American campaigns. They've taken the fifth in testimony before Congress. The Democratic Party is freaked out about it. These left-wing people are coming in from abroad, funding the Democratic Party and trying to take it over through the Democratic Socialists of America to advance a communist ideology. And the president is right to point it out. But I say again, stop calling them communist and just hang them by their own words. These people are radicals in their own right. We don't have to call them communists. Just repeat what they've said about this country. Hello there. Welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. If you text Erick, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, get everything you need to know about the show. Let's go to Tim in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome to the show, sir.
Yeah, hey, Eric. Things foreign policy-wise are not going that great for us. Trump was not able to end the Russia-Ukraine situation in one day, even though he said it would be easy, and he told us that a million times. And obviously things with Iran are not going as planned. Did it ever dawn upon anyone that maybe Trump picking his son-in-law and his real estate friend, maybe those are not the best people to be handling our negotiations? Why is Trump against picking, people that know what they're actually doing? And why do people like you not call this clown out on it?
Well, Tim, I've mentioned it multiple times that Witkoff and Jared Kushner should not be in charge of the negotiations, and have been highly critical of them for doing so. So, I mean, if you're saying that I don't call him out on it, you must not be a regular listener of the show, and you must just want to be calling to complain, because I have regularly criticized the fact. I think Witkoff has been a disaster, and I don't think that Kushner has been much better. At the same time, these are the people the president has picked, so I just hope that Marco Rubio and others behind the scenes are able to navigate and negotiate the situation, because they're not good people, Witkoff and Kushner, at this negotiation. I think they're out of the league. And by the way, I've got a great deal of respect for Jared Kushner. He's done some very good things, but I think he is, out to lunch when it comes to dealing with this particular situation, and that Witkoff himself has been absolutely exceedingly terrible on the issue of Ukraine and on the issue of Iran. Now, high prices are here to stay. Gas, grocery, insurance. If you're a homeowner, you've probably wondered if you should call American Financing to refinance and pay off credit card debt. And then you think you got a low mortgage rate. Well, that low rate is not saving you if you're drowning in credit card debt. There's math nobody wants to face on this. It costs you thousands of dollars in insurance costs if your credit card interest rate is 25%, which most of them are. If you're only making minimum payments, the debt's going to follow you for years. That's why people are calling American Financing, because they're saving customers an average of $800 a month using equity in your home to break free from credit card debt. Owe it to your family to see what's possible. No upfront fees. There's no pressure. It costs you nothing to find out what you could save each month. They have salary-based mortgage consultants. If you start today, you might be able to save 2 mortgage payments. Call American Financing, 866-886-9262. That's 866-886-9262. Or go to americanfinancing.net/Erick, E-R-I-C-K.
NMLS number 182334. NMLSconsumeraccess.org. APR for rates in the 5 start at 6.327% for well-qualified borrowers. Call 866-886-9262 for details about credit costs and terms. Visit americanfinancing.net/Erick. Average savings based on borrowers who save over $199.
Greetings. It is Erick Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. Sherilyn in Edmond, Oklahoma. You're going to be up next on the Erick Erickson Show. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you, Eric. Listen, I just wanted to comment back on what was said earlier about how to promote or campaign message for the Republican Party. But I really feel like at some point, Republicans, and I'm going to say / Christians, because I believe there are Christians in every party, maybe some just unaware. But really what it's going to boil down to is, are you for God and acknowledge God as the sovereign that we are accountable to, that the United States is accountable to? Or do you believe you're God, you yourself? And do you want your own truth and chaos? And essentially, communism rules out God and churches.
Yep. Yeah, it absolutely does. And for those of you who don't understand this point, there have been a number of entities over time who have tried to blend communism and Christianity together, and it never works. And it doesn't work because the state is the only thing you belong to in communism. And the state is supreme. Your rights come from the state. The state is the repositor of all power from the people, they claim, but actually it's an oligarchy that runs it. It's completely incompatible between the two. And it's not a coincidence that as democratic socialism and communism rise in the Democratic Party, it becomes more and more antagonistic to people of faith. Ironically, though, they tie in to Islam, and they love the Palestinian cause. Have you ever wondered about this? Because it doesn't make any sense, does it? It doesn't seem to make sense that so many of the far left agitators out there, the communists and the like, would in some capacity decide to embrace causes like Islam and Gaza. What is going on? And they can work at cross purposes, understand that. We saw, for example, in Iran in the 1970s, the Muslim radicals, the Islamic radicals, and the communists were allied against the Shah. And once the Shah was gone, they turned on each other. So I've mentioned this analogy before. If you've ever watched Lord of the Rings or you've read Lord of the Rings, one of the things that really gets people is, the reality is that what's his name? Peter Jackson, he got this so good in Lord of the Rings in the movie, and it's conveyed in J.R.R. Tolkien's book as well. The nasty orcs and the trolls and the like, they are as nasty to each other as they are to the humans when there are no humans around. When the humans are around, they seize upon each other. When the humans are not around, they're genuinely nasty to each other. It's because the things of the world hate the things of God first, and then they hate each other. The only way to reconcile why these left-wing causes can adopt causes that are anathema to them is to understand that the things of the world hate the things of God. I want to play you the introduction to a news clip from a local NBC affiliate. You'll have heard of this story by now.
Well, for the second time this week, a gay cruise in the Mediterranean was denied entry. The Turkish government banned travelers from docking because of, quote, moral standards. At least 1,000 Americans are on board, including passengers from South Florida.
Including passengers from South Florida. How is it possible that these people thought that they, sympathetic to Palestine and Islamic causes, queers for Palestine, that they could show up in Islamic countries? They literally, a gay cruise through the Mediterranean, decided that they wanted to show up in various Middle Eastern ports of call to show their solidarity. They really thought they could do it. You know, the real queers for Palestine, they get thrown off roofs in Gaza. They clearly do not recognize that their lifestyles are incompatible with Islam. They think they're on the same side. There is a level of naivete to it. There absolutely is. But here's what you have to understand. And you can't really process this unless you have some theological mindset. In Scripture, Jesus says, and then it's reiterated by the apostles as well, that the things of the world hate the things of God. John points that out. Jesus says they hate you because they hate me. The things of the world will ally with each other against the things of God. It's why the Jews and the Christians are so hated. And by the way, if you hate the Jews, but you think you are a Christian, you probably are not. I can call myself the King of England. And just because I believe myself to be the King of England does not make it so. I can call myself a Christian. And even though I call myself a Christian, that does not make it so. Now, it is not for me to say that one is or is not a Christian. That's for God, and he will sort it out on the last day. But I can, as a Christian, discern, and the New Testament is filled with language, including in 1 Corinthians and Jesus' own admonition of not throwing pearl before swine, that you have to have some level of intuition and discernment in who really is or is not a Christian. And you can tell them by their love, you can tell them by their deeds. And if you hate Israel, if you hate the people of the original people of God, if you spread anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, you can disagree with the Israeli government. You understand this. You can disagree with the Israeli government and not be anti-Semitic, but I find that most of the people who are obsessed with their outrage over the Israeli government tend to be anti-Semites. And if you are an anti-Semite, you definitionally cannot be a Christian. Why? Because Jesus himself was king of the Jews. So if you hate the Jews, you hate Jesus. And you may gussy it up and say Christ is king, as a lot of the anti-Semites do. But what they're actually doing is they're using Christ as a separator, not a unifier. And that actually is antithetical to Christianity. And it is not a coincidence that these people all align in their hatred of the hatred of the Jews and of Israel with this worldview that is very sympathetic to Muslims, because the things of the world hate the things of God. And as a Christian, I very much believe that Islam is derived from the world. One of the things that Muhammad said essentially was that Christianity was twisted and perverted the true word of God and path, and he sought to right the wrongs with Islam, and that is something worldly. So the secularists of the world will ally themselves with the things of the world like Islam in defiance of the things of God, like the Judeo-Christian tradition of the West, because they wish to overthrow the things of God, and then they'll sort out the fighting amongst themselves. So you have the communists who are atheists. Communism is an atheist belief set. Christianity and communism are not actually compatible, despite some of the best efforts of people in the West to try. And the Maoists and the Leninists, the Stalinists, the Marxists, they have all for a very long time recognized that this is why every communist nation on planet Earth is actually a secular country. The Russian Orthodox Church, when communists took over, largely to begin with, ruthlessly persecuted the Christians, and then thought they might be able to use it as these quote-unquote opiate of the masses to bring people sympathetic to communism. And the state church was essentially just a tool of the communists. The Chinese Communist Party, if you wish to operate a church in China, requires pictures of Mao and Xi Jinping, not pictures of Jesus. You want to operate a church in China, you better show Xi Jinping's picture, not Jesus's picture, or Mao's. You can do that, because the things of the world hate the things of God. And what we are finding is that as these people become dominant on the left, they become more violent. Why? Because Jesus in Christian scripture says to turn the other cheek, and it's something that even a lot of Christians have a hard time with. He's not saying you give up your right of self-defense. What he is saying is that vengeance is his. Thus saith the Lord, vengeance is mine. So you as a Christian are called to love your neighbor, and Jesus will sort out the people who have done you wrong. It's not for you to do that. What secularists say is do not turn the other cheek, but fight, and fight aggressively. And you hear a lot of people on the right who increasingly say that we have to be just like the left. You hear them increasingly saying these things, and what they actually mean, by the way, is that you need to give up the Christian tenets of letting God sort it out. You need to be the arbiter of the destruction of your enemies, not God. And you see this post-Christian ideology creeping on the right that in itself is detached from the Christian faith. And it's not a coincidence that is the people who embrace that view that we must be the arbiters of our vengeance and the meters out of our revenge, that these people have embraced anti-Semitism as well. Why? Because, again, they have fallen away from the faith, or they never embraced the faith, and the things of the world hate the things of God. So it's not a coincidence that the people on the right who think we need to behave like the left and the people on the left who hate the people on the right, they all are devoid of God, godliness, and Christianity, and they're all basically operating from postmodern secular ideology, which says you have your truth and I have my truth, and they will twist their truth into the cause of victimization. They want everyone to be perpetually a victim. The only people who are allowed to not be victims are the people who are the victimizers in their worldview, and those people overwhelmingly are upper-income white men. Upper-income white men, people of faith, people with no disability, people who have a degree, a college degree, but have remained faithful to their faith and their convictions and their small and locales around the country and their conservatism. Those people are the ultimate enemy to the left. It is a deep, deep, deep problem for the left. It is a deep, deep, deep problem for the revolutionaries on the right, that there are those of us who take our faith seriously, who constrain ourselves to understand God's got this. And again, it's very, very hard for people of faith who are involved in politics these days. In fact, we see more and more twisting of this in society as you find people who claim to be Christians in politics who believe we do need to be as nasty as the left, who we need to be as ruthless as the left, who we need to fight and engage, and we need to be willing to lie, cheat, and steal just like the left. They allow the left to control themselves. They don't want to find a different path, a different way to fight the left. They want to be just like the left. And for some reason, they keep seeing the left as winning when the left is not winning. I mean, I went through the 24 election. We didn't have the Save America Act, and the Republicans won the popular vote. But the Democrats and the postmodern right are professional victimizers, and they want you to feel like you are a victim. And in feeling like you are a victim, you are helpless unless you join the fight and fight in the way they wish you to fight. And you're seeing these white nationalists and these Christian nationalists who have co-opted faith, and they want to fight. They want to fight. They want to get dirty. And they want to say, oh, you want to play by some debate rules. The left is ruthless. We have to be ruthless. The church can't win if we don't violate the tenets of our faith and violate the 10 Commandments. God has never needed you to cheat, lie, and steal for him to advance his cause. And again, it's deeply incompatible with faith to behave the way the progressive left behaves, and be very leery of the voices on the right who say we should do that, because these people have either fallen away from the church or never been a part of the church, and they would have us steer just like the left. And I will say to you again, the right has been winning in large part because we haven't behaved like the left. The right has been winning in large part because we have refused to embrace the postmodern ideals of leftism, and we will begin to lose to them because the left believes in this pie in the sky, we can give all things to all people through communism. And the right doesn't have anything like that. And to the extent the right embraces something like that, you're embracing the communist values of the left. And why drink the Diet Coke of politics when you can have the real thing? You can have the full communism. It's why the right must be real careful elevating these postmodern voices, these post-liberal voices on the right, some of whom influenced the Trump administration, the advocates of tariffs and government control of industry. They're trying to be influential here, but ultimately, like a house of cards, their ideas collapse and they turn on themselves as well. Why? Because, again, the things of the world hate the things of God. And when the things of God are gone, the things of the world turn on each other as much as anything else. They're all a bunch of monsters. Welcome. Again, it's Erick Erickson here, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program? Mitch McConnell released proof of life. It's, again, the prevailing sentiment of our times is you can't just take a story as it is. You must concoct a conspiracy theory, and there have been those on the right who are opposed to Mitch McConnell and those on the left who deeply hate him, who have been convinced that he was dead. And they have refused all reason. They have refused to acknowledge that McConnell was alive, and so he releases a picture of him and Elaine Chao in the hospital, and explains that he passed out, he fell, he has no concussion, he had no stroke or heart attack, as some said, and he is recovering in the hospital. And yet there are still people who are convinced it's an AI photo, it's not real, it's made up. They believe that he's dead. Why do you think that is? Because one, they're idiots, and you should understand they're idiots. But two, these are people who want to be entertained. These are people who ultimately, at the end of the day, they want an entertainment. They want spectacle. There is not a person in Washington, D.C. who can keep a secret. If Mitch McConnell had died, it would have leaked out. Why? Because people can't keep secrets in Washington, D.C. But instead, because people are bored, because they want to be entertained, because they need to believe in a hidden hand and conspiracy theory to make life exciting, they have to believe that Mitch McConnell is dead. They have to believe that he's dead because life would be boring otherwise. And they want an exciting life, and they want you to believe that they have the secret Gnostic knowledge that you do not have, and they have the goods to know that McConnell is dead, when in fact he's very much alive and recovering in the hospital, and will be back in the Senate soon. Now, I got to tell you guys about what's up with Incogni now, because, you get all of these places on the internet. They got a file with your name on it, your home address, your cell phone number, your email address, and there's more. They can even get your medical conditions, age, how you vote, your kids' names. You can't read the file, but anybody with a credit card can buy it, and the file is the product of a multi-billion-dollar industry called data brokers. Your file's collected, packaged, and sold legally. Every scam call you get, every phishing text that knows too much about you, somebody paid for your file. Last year, Americans lost a record $20 billion with a B dollars plus to fraud. Scammers didn't get lucky. They got prepared with your file. So I did something about my file. I called Incogni. Actually, I went to incogni.com/Erick, INCOGNI. Incogni goes to brokers, forces each one to delete your file, and then they go to the opt-out forums that you can't find, and they find them, and your data tries to creep back, and Incogni wipes it again. Go to incogni.com/Erick, incogni.com/Erick. Save 60%.